In a call to the Kremlin, the Soviet premier has denied any involvement.
We've got Soviet aircraft coming at us from all directions.
I don't know how they snuck in on us.
I'll call the Kremlin.
God.
You're throwing everything you've got at me.
I am not your pet, Mr. President.
You know, we'll retaliate.
Attention, Captain. Welcome to this critical briefing. Hostilities have erupted, and we find ourselves on the brink of an all-out war. The time has come for decisive action and unwavering leadership. As the commander of your vessel, it is imperative that you understand the capabilities of the US Navy and the formidable warships that you will encounter in this conflict. Today we will delve into the details of the most advanced and powerful US warships. From aircraft carriers that dominate the seas, to the destroyers that enforce maritime supremacy, you will gain a comprehensive understanding of their strengths and weaknesses. This knowledge is not just power, it is your lifeline. Prepare yourself, Captain. Your ability to outmaneuver and outthink your enemy will determine the fate of our mission. The future of our fleet, and perhaps the very world, hang in the balance. Would you like to know more? Leave your thumbprint down below to confirm your identity, and your subscription to confirm your allegiance. Benjamin Franklin, a pivotal part of the United States nuclear triad. The missile men of this sub ensure that the war remains conventional. They offer security like no other platform in service. Should the nation fall, they guarantee retribution. The class was an evolutionary development of an earlier James Madison class, having quieter machinery and other improvements. It is considered a separate class. The primary difference was that they were built under the new sub-safe rules after the loss of USS Thresher, whom you will hear about later. James Madison, except for being initially designed to carry the Polaris A3 missile instead of the earlier A2, they are functionally identical to the Lafayette. One notable feature about American ballistic missile subs is they're pretty standardized, and each model is simply an improvement or a refinement of the previous. They're just trying to get it right, and that's the case here with the Lafayette. They were a slightly larger and generally improved Ethan Allen class, and these subs and their successors were equipped with a hovering system to manage trim more effectively when firing their missiles. This increased their missile rate from 1 per minute to 4 per minute. Ben, James and Lafayette made up a group of subs known as 41 for Freedom. 41 subs, 16 missiles, they had 656 reasons to think twice. America's most modern attack sub, the Los Angeles Flight 1. Still in service today in various iterations, it's large, powerful. Its main role was to keep up with and protect carrier groups. It is quiet and designed around a digital sonar and towed array. These integrated systems made the LA a serious threat to both surface and underwater threats. The Permit was a significant improvement on the world's fastest sub, the Skipjack class, with greatly improved sonar, diving depth and silencing. The lead ship, USS Thresher, had numerous advanced design features and embodied the future of US submarine design. And her loss was a serious blow. As a result of her loss, the sub-safe program was instituted to correct design flaws. The Skipjack class was once certified the world's fastest submarine, and it was based on the USS Albacore's experimental high-speed hull shape. This new design was maximized for underwater speed by fully streamlining the hull like a blimp. It also introduced the S-5W reactor to US nuclear submarines. It would go on to be one of the most used reactor types. Sadly, 5 years after the loss of the Thresher, the Scorpion would be lost in mysterious circumstances. The Sturgeon was the backbone of the US subfleet. It was a major improvement over the Permit, focusing on habitability and electronics. All of these subs received the ability to fire anti-ship missiles, the UGM-84, an underwater harpoon. Now we have finished the men of the Silent Service, and it's time to move above the waves and meet the surface fleet. It will be in alphabetical order, except for this. Your great-grandfather's ship. A ship that saw not just one war, 2 wars, 3 wars, all the wars. The Iowa-class battleship. Originally designed during World War II to intercept the fast capital ships of the IJN, like the Congo, and serve as the fast wing of the US battle line. Remarkably, they continued to serve into the missile age, embodying a stoic defiance towards the evolution of naval warfare. Despite their origins in an era of big guns and heavy armor, these battleships were updated with modern missile systems like Tomahawk and Harpoon, transforming them into powerful and versatile assets even in the late 20th century. Their ability to launch cruise missiles allowed them to strike targets far inland with pinpoint accuracy. While their anti-aircraft and anti-ship missile armament is lackluster compared to its Soviet counterpart, the Kirov, Iowa is tough, and it would be hard for modern missiles to do any real damage to her belt and machinery spaces. What she is really fitted for, though, is naval gunfire support and land attack, useful for situations where you may need to force a landing or break through a contested passageway. Rest assured, though, anything that stumbles into the range of her main armament is toast. Provide her with the AA and sub-defense that she craves, and they might just make good museum ships one day. Charles F. Adams was the first destroyer purpose-built to be a guided missile destroyer. It's also the last ship in the US Navy to have steam turbines. 3 were built for the Royal Australian Navy as the Perth class, and 3 were built for the Bundesmarine as the Lütjen class. Despite being a purpose-built missile destroyer, it does still have a competent gun armament of 5-inch 54s. While the Charles F. Adams was a great destroyer for its era, as it aged it became apparent that it just wasn't up to the task of modern aircraft combat and modern missile combat. The new threat upgrade was conceived, and it sought to rectify this. 3 or 4 ships were converted completely to the NTU upgrade, but then Aegis came along and made it completely redundant. Most other ships did not receive the full package, and they just received the single-arm launcher on the rear, as well as the systems to manage it. The Adjutant-class minesweeper was a class of wooden-hulled minesweepers with brass and stainless steel fittings to try and reduce magnetic attraction. They were widely exported, and they are still in service today in some countries. The aggressive class minesweepers were very unique in that they had a rather complex engineering plant. 9 non-magnetic diesel engines located in 2 engine rooms. Main propulsion in one room, everything else in another. Al Gore was a roll-on, roll-off. Originally built as high-speed merchants, their running costs were astronomical. They were passed to Military Sealift Command, and they were converted to high-speed transport for military supplies, still in service today. The first example of American naval doctrine in effect is the USS America CV-66. Originally planned as an Enterprise-class carrier, exorbitant costs saw this ship converted to a Kitty Hawk conventionally powered. USS America was the first large aircraft carrier since Operation Crossroads in 1946 to be expended in weapons tests. Despite a large protest from former crew, the ship was sunk in 2005. There are some differences in design between America and the other two Kitty Hawks, namely different placement of the anchors, slightly lower length, and other things you may have to look up yourself. The Austin are custom-designed landing platform docks, combining large well decks, a flight deck, and command and control facilities all into one ship. The Belknap is a single-ended missile cruiser built in the 1960s, fitted with a Mark X Mod 7 launcher, capable of firing both ASROC and Terrier missiles. They were often referred to as the Tear-Ass launcher. In the 1980s, they were upgraded to carry the later SM-2ER. We are almost halfway through the briefing. Make sure to confirm your identity down below by hitting that thumbs up and subscribing for more intel. Charleston, a purpose-designed vessel to support amphibious operations. 4 large holds are serviced by cranes able to hoist cargo up to 70 tons, bringing all the crayons and all the chicken tenders to the boys in need. I have to be careful how I say this one. The Kuntz, not the Kuntz. Technically called the Farragut class, it is often referred to as the Kuntz after the first ship in the series that was based around the missile destroyer design. All other earlier builds had to be converted to the Kuntz standard. I've been really thinking about how the matchup between the Soviets and the US would play out once full release hits our shores. And I've come to the conclusion that playing as the Americans or the US forces will actually probably require a lot more micro than the Soviets, due to the need to leverage so much air power to defend yourself from the crazy anti-ship missile strikes that the Soviets can leverage. The USS Forrestal will be a key component of that. She was the lead ship of her class and the largest carrier ever built at that time, the first purpose-built for jet aircraft. This particular carrier is fitted out with the F-4J Phantom as its fighter complement. Most of the other carriers have F-14A. She was nicknamed the FID, meaning first in defense, because that was her role and that was her namesake, the Secretary of Defense. The Galveston is one of the most interesting ships in the US fleet. It was a former Cleveland-class light cruiser from World War II converted into a missile cruiser and a test bed for various other weapons. Significant modifications were required to fit the 9.9 meter, 3.5 ton RIM 8 and its systems. The RIM 8 is a humongous missile. Absolutely massive. You can see from its test firing here on the missile range that it has 2 stages, and it totally annihilates unmanned drones, I swear. Garcia is a frigate, and if you don't know what a frigate is, their job is to fulfill the anti-submarine warfare mission for convoys and amphibious groups. Garcia was originally intended to carry the Dash anti-submarine warfare drone. This project, however, was a failure, and so a helideck was fitted instead. It now carries the Sea Sprite, which is a very effective anti-submarine platform. One thing I would like to see throughout the course of early access and full release would be the addition of search and rescue. You may have noticed there are quite a few World War II era ships in the US lineup, and that is because they had so many of the things left over after World War II that they tried to find a use for them. The Gearing Fram 1 was an attempt to convert the gearing from an AA ship to an anti-submarine role, often referred to as the Fram Can. I've been informed that that's because the only thing they were good for was shooting at. Can you dig it? The Gearing Fram 2 is probably the variant closest to its original iteration. It still has the full gun armament, and the only modernized system apart from radar is the Mark 46 torpedo. Congratulations! If you're watching this, you have an attention span higher than most of the rest of YouTube. In celebration, I'm going to show you the iOS shoot it stuff. Here, have some Bert. Bert! Something tells me that the United States really used to like Iran. Well, not anymore. Originally intended for the Imperial Iran Navy, after that pesky Islamic Revolution, they were diverted to US service. They were specialized anti-air destroyers based on the Spruance. These ships served in the Persian Gulf mainly, as they were built for that theater and they had better cooling systems, aka air conditioning. A group of 8 ammunition ships, the Kilauea. It never escaped me the irony of naming an ammunition ship after a volcano, but here they are. One of the most active volcanoes on Earth, by the way, in Hawaii. A lot of people would be familiar with the Kitty Hawk. They get around. USS Kitty Hawk CV-63. The biggest differences from the Forrestal's were greater length and different placement of the elevators. 2 are forward of the island. In sea power, not all of the elevators are utilized. Some of them, 2 of them on each ship, is a static elevator, and it's just got decoration planes on it, which made me cry a little bit. I would have liked to see all 4 elevators up and down. USS America was a Kitty Hawk mentioned earlier, but the differences she had was no portside anchor and an additional anchor astern. America was also the only post-World War II US carrier to be built with sonar, which was removed in the 1980s. The Knox-class anti-submarine warfare frigate. It had a tough time. Due to their comparison to destroyers, they were often referred to as McNamara's Folly. They were originally fitted with the torpedo-armed dash drone, but fitted later to take the Sea Sprite when the drone's program failed. They were a single screw design, which made some people worry that there were not enough redundancies in propulsion. But its job is anti-submarine warfare in a frigate role, so it's only escorting convoys and things like that. So it did its job, in my opinion. You don't need to get close to the sub when you can just fire rockets at him. The Leahy missile cruiser are the first double-enders that I've reviewed. They have missile launchers fore and aft. They were originally fitted with 3-inch 50 mounts, but these were swapped for harpoon launchers. Thus, they have no gun armament, so make sure you take them out with screening ships, or just pound them with the missiles. I hear that pounding your enemy with a double-ender is good for morale. There are 2 variants of this cruiser, but I forgot to film the other one, so have some shots of the first variant shooting its missiles about. USS Newport is a class of tank landing ship. They are capable of higher top speeds than your average roll-on roll-off because they use a ramp instead of bow doors. In 2001, this ship was sold to the Mexican Navy and renamed ARN Papaloapan. Now we have Big Daddy Nimitz, USS Nimitz CVN-68, one of the largest warships in the world. CVN means aircraft carrier multi-mission nuclear powered. The Nimitz class carriers have a lifespan of approximately 50 years, which means that next year, 2025, one of them, I believe, is due for decommissioning, or at least for terminal wind down. In May of 1981, a prowler crashed on the flight deck, killing 14 and injuring 45, as well as damaging 19 other aircraft. This incident led to zero-tolerance drug policy within the United States military, after certain aspects of the media clung to certain results. Pegasus-class hydrofoil missile boat. Originally a joint NATO program, bought from the Tucumcari project to counter Soviet fast attack craft. It was an amalgamation of work from the Ali Navi Society in Italy and Boeing's new proprietary hydrofoil system. A collection of countries were all interested in purchasing them. The project collapsed and only 6 were built. Oliver Hazard Perry, or the Fig 7, is one of the most easily recognizable ship classes from the NATO forces, designed in the 1970s as a general escort vessel to complement the Spruans. 6 were built for the Royal Australian Navy as the Adelaide class, and 2 of those were built in Australia. The ship built to complement the Perry, the Spruans class destroyer. Designed to replace the aging Gearing and Allen M. Sumner class destroyers, it was developed as a modern ASW platform and point defense anti-aircraft vessel. Now considered one of the most important vessels in the entire US Navy. This class of ship is much more capable than the early iterations of US destroyers, and it is multi-mission capable. Time for a little bit of Mrs. T, the Tyrael class landing helicopter assault platform, an amphibious assault ship. On board we have 3 different types of chopper. We have an attack chopper, we have a troop transport chopper, we have an anti-submarine warfare chopper, and we have 6 Harriers. Like the Soviet helicarrier design where the Yaks can take off vertically, the Tyrael needs to launch her Harriers using the runway, so helicopters interfere with Harriers landing and taking off. So launch one wing at a time, don't try to launch multiple different types of aircraft, or your Harriers will sit there all day waiting for the choppers to finish. When you get the timing right, it looks pretty cool to watch all your choppers take off at the same time. Unfortunately, these don't yet have a mission besides being able to use their surface search radar, but I would love to drop some Marines on a beach somewhere. What movie does that remind you of? All hail the mighty cube. Tycho, King Tycho is here. The Ticonderoga iconic design because of the unique SPY-1 array, which brings all the symmetry you desire. Known as the shield of the fleet, the exceedingly powerful Aegis combat system allows for unprecedented threat management. You want one of these, perhaps 2, next to all of your carriers. And then we have a line of nuclear cruisers, the Virginia-class missile cruiser. Nuclear-powered, guided missile cruisers that served the United States Navy until the mid to late 1990s. They cost a whopping $300 million to refuel. And they were an easy choice to scrap under budget cuts in the late 90s. And there you have it, my friends. That is the entire summary of the US fleet, both underwater and surface ships, as of early access 2024. I hope this has been useful. If it has, leave me a like, leave me a comment, and let's make sea power the most exciting thing to happen next year.
We have a launch detection. We have a Soviet launch detection.
B-Muse confirmed a massive attack.